is that if you're on the fence of using it, just go ahead and test it out and start using it, and then ask other people how they're using it too. And so you get a sense of maybe how you can use it. Since your audience is more, solopreneurs and entrepreneurs, is that think of ways of how to utilize AI for a specific task that you want it to do for your business. And then start small, right? It doesn't have to be big. Just start small and see if it can handle that. And then, you move on from there. But my suggestion is just to start using it within your business or your everyday life and then just learn from it and grow from that because your early adopters now are going to be 100 times more ahead than anybody else that hasn't started.
Welcome to Tradition Breakers. I'm Mary Moses, former corporate executive turned creative entrepreneur, and each episode I bring you an inspiring person or message to help more of us in the AAPI community break free from restrictive traditions that are preventing us from going after the life that we truly desire. Let's dive in. You're exceptional at what you do. Your clients know it. Your community knows it. But if most of your business still comes from referrals, you already know the risk you're sitting on. Hi, I'm Mary Moses, brand and marketing strategist who's worked with leading consumer brands like Honest, Wix, Tender Greens, and Postmates. And what all these great businesses have in common is that they're stellar at getting in front of the right people and converting them into paying customers. This is what I help business owners like you build, a clear, focused marketing system that attracts steady, qualified leads, then nurtures and converts them into paying clients without adding any headcount or expensive agency fees. I also won't have you chasing the latest social media trends or dancing in front of the camera. Just a simple system built around your life and how you work best. If you're ready to build this for your business, then head to marymoses.com and book a free call. That's marymoses.com, and I'll talk to you soon. Hi, Tradition Breakers. Welcome back to another episode. This week, I am interviewing Tim Park. He is an AI specialist and expert with a mission to teach 1 million realtors about the capabilities and power of AI. And I know that, Tim, real estate is your specialty,
Mm-hmm.
but really, AI can apply to all industries, and you also can help everyone in all industries as well. So just want to point that out that Tim is going to have insights and recommendations. Whether or not you're in real estate, this is going to come really handy and also relevant to what you all are doing. And also, you don't have to be technical at all to utilize AI, right? So don't let that be a barrier for you to listen to this episode. AI is here to stay. It's going to touch all of our lives, which is why I really wanted to have Tim really kind of dispel myths, educate us more, and show us things about AI that we didn't even know about. So, Tim, welcome. Thank you for being here.
Oh, thank you for having me. I appreciate the time and, having me on the podcast. So,
My pleasure. So, why don't we just get right to it? AI is still very new, although it seems like it's been here for so long because it's been in so many people's radars. Everyone's
I know.
talking about it in real life and on social media, on the news. It's taken everything by storm, and I understand why. It's very revolutionary.
Mm-hmm.
It's as big, if not bigger, than the internet when it first came out.
Yeah.
Um, so I want to understand, like, you're in this space. When and how did you become highly engaged and engrossed in AI?
Yeah, absolutely. I think I've always been in tech, so I've worked for some great companies and some great brands on the social side of tech. But I got into real estate maybe 5, 6 years ago, and then what happened is that I was like, well, there has to be a better way to maybe contact maybe leads or lead generation. So I looked into how to develop, certain maybe AI could help out. And about 3 years ago, that's when I implemented my AI to actually do outreach for leads in real estate. And that was very successful because it stopped me from doing cold calls, which a lot of people do not like to do, whether it's a regular business or real estate or whatever business you're in. because it takes a certain amount of person to kind of be consistent in cold calling, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because people can be very nasty, or egos could be bruised, and you just like, I'm going to quit this. But so that's kind of why I created like the outreach system for at least real estate and other businesses as well. Is that it was able to have natural conversations via text messages with homeowners about seeing if they're wanting to sell their house or not. And I got leads from that and closed deals from that. So that was the start of my AI journey. And then about 3 years ago, or a year ago, people start asking me, how am I getting all my deals? Or, how are you getting your leads? All of that. And I told them I have an AI that does that. And so that kind of spun off to starting my own AI agency that provides AI tools for real estate. But I also have another agency that builds the same tools for everyday businesses, small to medium-sized businesses.
That's so great. What I love about that story is it's so organic. Like you had a
Mhm.
need, right? You created a solution for your need and someone noticed.
Yeah,
And you weren't even, were you even thinking about potentially selling this or yeah, right? It was
not at
really
all.
for you.
Mhm.
And that's when like the best inventions happen or the best businesses happen as you're trying to solve a need for yourself. Love that story. So now you're working with other realtors or real estate
Mhm.
agents and you also have an agency where you help other businesses do the same
Correct.
thing, which is lead
Correct.
generation. Let's just say that I'm a business owner.
Mhm.
um I'm not technical.
Mhm.
All this AI talk is a little, I don't know, it kind of makes me nervous or
Mhm.
anxious or even scared, right?
Sure.
um but I want to learn about it
Mhm.
because I know it's important. What should I be prioritizing in terms of what to learn about, what to do?
I think the most important thing is maybe just to get started with it, because the opportunity is there. The AI is not going to go away. We're still in early adoption of it, even though media says, otherwise. There's a huge gap in people using AI and actually what AI can do. And I think, you know, when I do talks, I do speaking engagements in real estate and outside of real estate, and most of that is fear of using it, right? And that's maybe due to what they've heard or someone's shared with them. But I think understanding how you can use it and when you can use it, right? Because these platforms are free, basically. You could use them, whether it's ChatGPT, Claude, or Google Gemini. You can definitely use these platforms for free, because the most important thing in using them is communicating to them on what you want it to do. And usually, especially the older generation that's used to going to Google and searching, that's what they type. They'll type in like, what's the nearest salon near me, right? Or something
Mhm.
like that. And that's what they do in ChatGPT, right? They do
Mhm.
those same type of searches. But you have to understand how you can prompt it to do exactly what you want. So, and ask it questions,
Right.
or have it ask you questions too, as well. Because one of the main prompts that I like to say at the end of whatever you're asking it is, ask me questions until you're 95% sure that you can complete that task. And then now
Mhm.
it's going to ask you all these questions that you have to refine that so it gives you a more accurate answer to what you just asked it to do.
Mhm. I agree. I think that when people hear of AI, a lot of them may not realize that AI, yes, it stands for artificial intelligence, but
Hmm.
what that means is you now can actually have a conversation with this machine, right?
Hmm.
It's not just like you're typing something into Google and nothing's really like asking you questions. You kind of
Correct.
have to just dig deeper on your own.
Yeah.
Whereas with AI, now it's like kind of like a person, but not really. So, but what that does mean is that you can communicate with it like a person.
Yes.
So, it's going to understand you better if that's how you approach it.
Exactly. Exactly. And I think once they get over that kind of hurdle and understand how to communicate with it, and, bigger companies are paying people to communicate with AI, because what they're
Hmm.
doing is implementing AI into their business on a higher level. But the tech people are techie, and then the executives don't understand, how AI works. So they need a middle person that can explain in layman's terms to the executives what they're building and how it's going to solve their problem to generate more revenue.
Tim, is
And
that you or are you
yeah.
also the tech person?
Yeah, so a little bit of both. So, I have a sales background and I've been in marketing for years as well too. So I dabbled in code, so I kind of know like the back end, but also know how to communicate that to business owners or mid-level executives or high-level executives, and it's a situation where you really have to kind of people that aren't used to AI is kind of like, you know, make it elementary to them where they can say, step by step what it can do and what it can't do. And
Hmm.
because each business has an issue with their business, it's a bottleneck or it's a process which slowing their revenue process, making money basically. And is finding out if we could use AI or even a automation to solve that issue. And a lot of people don't know that there's solutions out there that can help them out with that particular problem in their business too.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really interesting that you brought that up because there's a lot of jobs that are getting created, especially in the tech world, because people
Mhm.
there are a lot more open and welcoming with AI.
Mhm.
There's a lot of jobs being created, whether that's temporary or permanent, where they're looking for people to help them integrate AI into their
Yeah.
business, right?
Yeah.
So there's a huge opportunity there. So that's another reason why I wanted someone like you on the show is because I want people to understand like yes, it's going to AI is going to take away jobs, but it's also going to create a lot of jobs. And I
100%.
want as many people to participate in the job creation in that economy that's going to basically boom
Yeah.
very soon. It's already happening. And also, we're seeing a lot of investors search for AI powered companies
Mhm.
right
Mhm.
now. So, a lot of money is going into this industry, into this world. And you guys, I want you all to eat when it comes to this.
100%. So I also want to talk about too is that like even if you're not a business owner or if you're just an employee, how it can help you as the employee do your job more efficiently, right?
Yes.
And even though management or even upper management isn't utilizing AI in the business, you can utilize AI for your job. And if you create, an app that actually makes your life a little bit easier at your job, you should learn AI to create something for you to do that, right? So I don't think I think people get this a mindset of I have to be a business owner to utilize AI to its fullest. No, you can still work at your job 9 to 5, but use AI to be more efficient in your everyday working experience or life or whatever job you have.
Yeah, I totally agree. And also to even go deeper into that, you don't even need to use AI for your job. You
Hmm.
can use it for your personal life
Personal life
and
as well.
yeah, create efficiencies in your personal life. I see a lot of people using AI, which we'll talk about, right? To
Hmm.
handle like ordering things for them, like
Hmm.
little admin tasks. Like
Yeah. Yeah.
it's happening. And so I want my hope is that people realize that AI can be this tool that just helps you, like an
Hmm.
assistant would help you. Going back to what may be holding some people back from
Hmm.
using AI, because we have these two very polarizing views about AI that's floating around in the ether. There's one side where that talks about AI destroying the world,
And then there's this other side that just talks about how AI is the greatest thing. It's going to create like this environment where nobody has to work, all our basic needs are met. So two very polarizing views. And I understand where they come from. What's your view?
I think my view, I made a post about this earlier. It was like a little rant that I made just because there are two views, right?
Hmm.
And they're granted, right? I totally understand both sides. But I think you have to understand that it's not going anywhere. So if you're on one side that is scared and not going to use it, there's a sense of where you're going to be left behind because it's going to continue to progress, right? And
Yes.
get better. And then the other side of it is people jumping in blindly and testing out all the new features without really any kind of security risk or, and it's turning out it's spending money for them and, now they're in debt or whatever the case may be.
Hmm.
So I'm in the middle, right? I'm like, you definitely have to go and use it for sure, but be safe. Don't go
Yes.
after every shiny new object. Do your research before you jump in. Like talking about this later with OpenClaw is that I didn't jump in right away with OpenClaw because
Hmm.
there was a lot of security issues in regards to OpenClaw. So I just did my research before that, before I started even testing it and found out a way to have it more secure. Right. So
Hmm.
I think whatever you're going to use it for, just be mindful on how you're going to use it and then what security issues you may have and concerns and do that research for it. But for me, I think just jumping in and learning it, you're just going to be ahead of everybody else that is, either scared or just not going to use it at all because there's an adoption gap with AI even though it's mainstream and they're saying everybody is using it, not everybody is using it. Like when I
Yes.
go to outside of my bubble, like of, talking with my circle of, people that are in AI and go outside of that bubble and start talking to everyday people, nobody's really using it or using it to the effect that
Yeah.
it's 100% used for or capable of using it for, right? So I think people don't understand that. And there's a lot of education from a entry level that is missing because ChatGPT is not teaching you how to use ChatGPT,
Yes.
right?
Exactly.
Claude is not using, and then that was the whole thing with Copilot in Microsoft. They launched it and didn't have any training, but it's on all Excel, it's on, Microsoft Word, all of this stuff. And the user had to learn how to use it itself themselves to benefit them before they have. So they launched it and there was no training around it and nobody was training. So that's why all these YouTubers now that are very niche in training, how to use specific AIs are, getting a lot of views is because, they're finding out that there's no training with these AIs out there. And that's
Yeah.
the main reason that I want to teach people how to use it for personal life or business or for their job. So,
Yeah, I resonate with a lot of what you said, being in the middle. I too am in the middle. I think that we can't afford not to learn it. And also, there's so much upside to it too. So, why wouldn't I want to learn how it can better my life and the people around me? Number
yeah,
one.
yeah.
Number two, like, yes, there definitely is a possibility that it can be disastrous for
Hmm.
humanity. But there's also a possibility where it can help us advance even more
Yeah.
and solve a lot of problems, right? And to your point, being aware of the security measures or security issues is one way to make sure that we don't get to that other side, the
Exactly.
the apocalyptic side. And I think where we have to ask ourselves is, well, first of all, we have to know ourselves. If you're
Mm,
not technical, right? If you are, like I said, not technical and you don't have the background to get yourself out of a sticky situation on
hmm.
OpenClaw, then my advice
Yeah.
to you is don't mess with it yet,
Yeah.
right? And if you are, get someone like Tim. Maybe you have a friend who's like really like deep into this stuff. Get
Hmm.
help from them. But
100%.
that only comes from being honest with like what your capabilities are and who
Yeah.
you are.
And that's where I got
Um,
help too. Like I got
yeah,
help on how to set up the security protocols for using OpenClaw because I didn't know how to set that up. So,
yeah.
and I was worried about that. So that's what I did and researched, and I got the person to help me out to do those security protocols. So,
Exactly. Get help. And then another thing that I want to urge people is, of course, there's going to be others who will use this for, like I said, disastrous things, evil things, for lack of a better word, which is
hmm
why it's even more important for good hearted human beings to be using AI
yes, 100%.
because we cannot let the dark side get a hold of this tool for their own benefit. We have to, we as I like to think of myself as a good human being fighting for the light here. We need to be educated on this too, so that we can use it to
Yeah,
advance humanity. We got a little philosophical there,
I know, right?
Tim.
It's good because I think we need to have these conversations because it does affect humanity, right? And I know
hmm
the top leaders in AI right now met on the world platform, and they all talked about the concerns they have for using this on in government,
hmm
in finance, also in just um, politically, right? So there is a collective concern within the top owners of these AI platforms that uh, in the world, they have to use it for good, right?
Yes.
Instead of evil. And I think if they're thinking that and they stand by that, then I think we're possibly in a good place moving forward. But
hmm
if there's always maybe a bad apple or something like that, then there's something to because I mean, the AI is so powerful now
Yeah.
and what it can do and how it can do it. So we need to have those conversations.
We definitely do. You saying all of this validates why everyday people need to also be knowledgeable about
Mm-hmm.
AI. It can't
Mm-hmm.
just be the government. It can't just be, the technocrats or all the big corporations. We also need to learn this technology so
Mm-hmm.
that we know what's happening, what's
Mm-hmm.
going on. You mentioned ChatGPT, Gemini,
Mm-hmm.
Claude. Those are like the three most popular Copilot.
Mm-hmm.
Those are like the four most popular AI tools right now that are out.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and you mentioned something really interesting. So many of us don't even know how to utilize those. And
Mm-hmm.
they're like the simplest ones, in my
Mm-hmm.
opinion, out on the market.
100%.
Um, so, how would you recommend people to start educating themselves on how to utilize that better? You
Mm-hmm.
mentioned talking to it, asking it
Mm-hmm.
questions.
Mm-hmm.
I think also what could be really useful is if you have a project yourself
Mm-hmm.
and utilizing tools and finding tools in order for you
Yes.
to like see what works.
Yeah. And I think each one is different in what it's good at too. And I
Yeah.
think that's important to understand is that with chat GPT, it's, conversation. It's really good. It gotten good at imaging, but also it can create like specific GPTs for maybe a niche that you have, or if it's like for,
Or wait, can you pause there? What
yeah,
is a
sure, sure, sure.
GPT so people know?
So within ChatGPT, you can create custom agent GPTs. So they're called
Mm-hmm.
GPTs.
Mm-hmm.
And if you do click on the left side and it'll say GPTs, and then you'll see kind of almost like a marketplace of people creating different GPTs for different things. So you can utilize those things, whether it's a grocery list calculator or something, whatever. I mean, it's everything under the sun there. But if you have something specific to your needs, you can create that on
Mm-hmm.
there. And it would, instead of going to chat and going back to your chat that you had to search for because, you've been using it for a while, you just go to that GPT and then, ask it, or if it's a repeat question, maybe like for addresses, like, do a market research for this address, right? I don't have to
Mhm.
go into ChatGPT each time and then tell it to do that. I just go to that specific GPT because it
Yeah.
knows the market that I'm in already, and then it will do a market analysis based off of this address that I gave it, right? So that's
Yes.
something very specific. But, going back to how you use it is that, like, a lot of people don't know that you can actually physically talk to it, right? Instead of typing on it. So like when I'm driving, I'll talk about it and then do kind of a verbal vomit of my thoughts. And then later on in the day, I was like, hey, I had that thought. Can you put that into maybe a strategy for what I was thinking at that time? Right.
Mhm.
And then it will just list the exact points that I had and then come up with a strategy for that specific topic. All right. Because
Mhm.
I will have thoughts all the time, but then, you're driving, you want notes and, and you can't always pull over and write them down. So that's why I utilize ChatGPT to, record those thoughts and then we will analyze that later.
Mhm. So it's
So
kinda
that's,
like having an admin assistant
yeah, for
to
sure.
yeah.
For sure. And then, like I was saying, these different chat GPT or different platforms are good at different things. So Google Gemini is really good at image generation, right? So they
Mhm.
have this tool called Nano Banana Pro where it can like come up with realistic AI images for you. So a use case, just because I'm in real estate, is that I teach people how to utilize that platform for virtual AI staging, right? So they'll take a picture of a room and then they want it in a mid-century modern design, and it will recreate that room. Everything's the same except the furniture changed out, maybe the color of the room, but the windows, doorways, everything is the same, is very consistent. It's just a different look for that room. So um, people don't know that that can happen, right? And that's how they're generating all these different looks for people. So you can have your headshot there,
Oh,
right? So you can have a picture of you and then ask it to create a headshot for you with different looks, wearing different clothes. So it's when you test it and use it, you kind of think of what else can I do with it, and then your mind
right.
just goes everywhere and you're like, "Oh my gosh, this is great," right? So
I know, but it only starts when you play with the tool,
that's it.
right?
That's it.
You
Right?
just gotta start playing with it.
Yeah.
Um, what other use cases have you found, or maybe you're just thinking about it, that entrepreneurs could be using AI for? And I'm zeroing in on
Mhm.
entrepreneurs and founders because
Sure.
most of our audience is
Perfect.
that demo.
So I think what solopreneurs and entrepreneurs and business owners need to think about is maybe what is something that is a bottleneck in their business, right? That takes up
Mhm.
most of their time and takes away from making money really in their
Mhm.
business. And writing that down and then even asking the, ChatGPT or any of these other platforms like Claude, what you can do to maybe solve that issue, right? So it's going to go ahead and give you some ideas on solutions or strategies to do that. But I think for business owners, we're always thinking of how can we reduce time but make more money, and
Yes.
understanding there's expenses, right? So how do we reduce those expenses also, and how do we utilize different tools to help us achieve that? And AI is a big tool that you can use to save time and generate more revenue. But the missing piece is, how do you do that? So understanding where the issues are in your business and how to streamline that is where basically I can come in and say, hey, AI can do this, it can't do this, but you may need to use maybe a workflow. And sometimes
Mm-hmm.
you don't, some business owners don't need to use AI for their specific needs. It's just a situation where AI is a hot topic and they think they need AI for everything, right?
Yeah, exactly. Because they're not very educated or knowledgeable about what capabilities AI
Mm-hmm.
does have at the moment, right?
Yeah.
And don't feel bad if that's you. AI is
Not at all.
very new and it's continuously changing,
Y- Yeah.
which is a great segue to my next question. There's this new revolutionary, I call it revolutionary, maybe you don't, but there's this new tool that everyone's talking about. It's OpenClaw, right?
Yes.
So many people are excited about it. I'm not sure if you listen to the All In podcast, but they're like so excited about it.
Yeah. Yeah.
They're like integrating it into their business, specifically Jason. It's an autonomous agent for those of you who don't know what OpenClaw is. And
Mm-hmm.
it acts like an assistant, not like
Mm-hmm.
ChatGPT where you have to feed it things like
Mm-hmm.
consistently, but it actually it lives in your computer or whatever device that you're going to put it in. And you can talk more eloquently about this than I can,
Mm-hmm.
but it actually does the actual task that you want it to do, meaning it'll surf the web, it'll shop for the items that you told it to, it'll even
Mm-hmm.
build a website. It'll, I've even seen it program meta ads for people. So let's talk about this. What are
Okay.
your thoughts on it? I know you're using it.
Mm-hmm.
And what should people look out for when utilizing OpenClaw?
I think one, OpenClaw is pretty amazing, right? And one thing I want to discuss is the difference between OpenClaw and, let's say, ChatGPT and Claude and all that, right?
Yes.
So OpenClaw is an open source platform that you can download onto your computer or server if you like, and it can run all of your applications within that, computer, for instance. So what it does is it connects to Claude, it connects to ChatGPT, it connects to these different AI models so that it can go out autonomously and do these tasks that you want it to do, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I am using it, and like I said earlier, that I was kind of late to the game of using it. It's fairly new still, right? I was about maybe a week, 2 weeks off, So
Late. Oh my
yeah,
goodness.
so right, late for AI, I should say, right? But inherent reason is because I was scared about all the security risks and issues that came up. So the reason why is that someone had really the owner had vibe coded this OpenClaw, right? And didn't really set up any kind of security protocols. Now that
Mm-hmm.
they've merged, basically Sam Altman
Open
but
AI.
yeah,
Yeah.
OpenAI bought it, right? Basically,
Mm-hmm.
and hired him to run it. Is now they have is tremendously faster right now, and it's also a little bit more secure for sure. They've
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
added some updates to it, but that was my real concern and I think as business owners that should be a concern of yours as well
It
too,
is.
because you do not want things that you have access to within your company that you're utilizing third party to be accessed by someone else. So, because what they can do is take that information, use the platforms that you use, and start spending money on those platforms, and you're stuck with a bill, right? So,
Mm-hmm.
and that's what's
Mm-hmm.
kind of been happening. So just be aware of maybe security protocols when you're talking about OpenClaw. And one of the things I think, all these people are doing amazing things with it. And we see all the amazing things that they're
Yeah,
doing, but we're not seeing how they got there because it does take some time to
it does.
train the AI. And then you have to say, no, that's not the way to do it. Just do it. So like there's some back and forth because that's the way you would train any employee is that like it's, they'll do it and then it's not the way you want it. So you have to train it to kind of do it the way you want it to be done, right?
Yes. Yes.
And so that's kind of how I'm working with OpenClaw right now. So it's really cool because OpenClaw can connect to your text messages if you want to text message and communicate it with it. If you want to communicate it with Telegram, you can do that. Slack, if your company is on Slack, you want to communicate through Slack. So you can work normally how you would work in any kind of work setting and communicate it naturally how you would naturally. Instead of sending an email or going to actually a platform, you can naturally talk to it just like you're talking to a friend or an employee to do a task. So
Yeah.
that's the biggest difference on the way you communicate with it is not the standard way you would communicate with like ChatGPT or anything, because you really have to open that app to communicate with it, right? With
Yeah,
this, you
exactly.
can just text it, right? That's really cool about that. And I'm going back and forth with it. A lot of things is that you definitely have to. Well, another thing to watch out with is token usage. A lot of these people that are using it and had success with it are not talking about their token usage, because if you use their latest and greatest models out there, they're more expensive than the earlier models that had come out, right? So the later models that had come out. And so
Models
it,
of.
of like, so let's say ChatGPT has, I think,
Mhm.
4 point whatever, right? So
Mhm.
Claude is the same way, 4.6, right? So if you're
Mhm.
using the latest models, then that's going to be more expensive
Yeah.
for it to do that task, right?
Yeah, think of it as like your operating system, guys. Like
Exactly.
there's different ones, right? For those of you who are already using chat, like you can do the legacy model or the
Mm-hmm.
newest model. So what Tim is saying is the latest ones require more energy, which means more tokens. Is that right?
Exactly. Yeah,
Okay.
no. Think of it as a car, because like you have different models of cars, right? And
Yeah.
one is faster, one is not faster, right? And so it's very similar to that, to where if you use the most fastest one, it's going to be most expensive, right?
Yes.
So on my models, I use lower versions of their models. Not saying that they're not more and less efficient. They're great at what they do. It's just that they're costing me less. So
Yeah.
um,
And you might not even need the more advanced models for
absolutely,
what you're
depending on
trying to
the
do.
task.
Mhm.
And so how I
Exactly.
set it up is that I know, so when you download Claude, right? And it's just a catch-all, like you can tell it to do whatever you want it to because it has access to your computer, right? So I wanted to set it up a little bit different because I have a couple businesses. So instead
Mhm.
of just a catch-all, I set it up into projects. And how I do it is that I have a main operational agent that manages each of those projects. And each of those projects could be my business, right?
Mhm.
So I have my real estate business, and then I have my AI businesses, right? So
Mhm.
those are 3 projects. And then within
Mhm.
those 3 projects, I have sub agents running tasks in that. And then the main agent within the system is managing those sub agents, if that makes sense,
Mhm.
right?
Yes, it does. It does.
So that's
Are
how
you
I set
doing
it up.
this all in one device?
One device,
Okay.
right?
Okay.
So the reason why I'm doing that is because I'm understanding the structure,
Yeah.
right? Because
Yeah.
then if I work with a bigger company, I can do this on a larger scale with machines, right?
Right.
So like if you think of like say a Mac Studio machine that can run multiple Mac mini machines, and each of
Mhm.
them have OpenClaw on them, and you have that main studio AI agent running all of those departments within your company,
Mm,
right?
mm,
So that's on a larger scale. But if you understand how to structure it on a single system, you're going to know how to structure it on a larger system. So just knowing the basics of that. So if I onboard a client that needs like, so one of my clients is a new mobile massage therapist, right?
mhm.
And so what she has is she has multiple massage therapists that go out to the appointments, the location of the client, right? But she does everything by her cell phone. So she has really no life because she's making the appointments, she's talking to the
Mhm.
massage therapist, making sure that they can show up on the appointment. So now we've automated that for her, right? And then
Mhm.
so there's a agent that actually answers the phone, sends them the, questionnaire. Once they fill out the questionnaire, that's when she does her touch point and makes sure
Mhm.
that they qualify, they're not a creep or anything, and then from there, the AI will send out the notification to all the massage therapists to see if they're available for that appointment, and then once they
Mm.
respond back, then it contacts the client and says, "Mary is gonna be at your appointment. Is there any instructions for her to access your place, right?" And then
Mhm.
so that would be relayed back to the agent, and everybody's in the communication, and that removes her from doing all those tasks that she was doing before. So now
Right.
she can concentrate on growing her business instead of being in her business, right?
Yeah.
So that's kind of, understanding the structure on how you want OpenClaw to be in is good. So that's why I have it in projects, and as I add clients, they'll be in a new project, and the agent can handle everything within that project as well too.
Mhm. Mhm. What I like about that story is that it shows how AI is not the answer to a bad business or a bad system or process. Like,
Exactly.
it's not the magic bullet or the magic
Mm,
pill to make your business work, you guys. AI works best when you already have a process in place, in my opinion.
100%.
And now you're just using AI to either start to automate or to increase what's already automated so that you can scale. That's how I want you all or hope that you all think about it. It's not the answer to your problems or
Yeah.
it, like I said, it's not going to fix bad business or a bad business model.
Yeah,
Um
absolutely.
and when you're talking about, like the Mac Studio and the Mac Mini, I'm just thinking about like all these little people living in the Mac Minis. Like, oh my God. I'm like thinking,
That's so
you
funny.
know, yeah, I'm like thinking, have you ever seen that movie with what is it? It's with Wreck It Ralph and they live in like the arcade
Oh, yeah.
video games. Yeah, I'm
Mhm.
like thinking about it. Could be a cute Disney movie.
That's so funny. That's so funny.
Yeah, it's sort of like having these little people live in these machines, right?
Mhm.
Like, you can even name your assistant whatever you want. Mm, the reason why there's a point to why I was saying this, but the reason why that security is a factor, a big factor is that assistant or that agent has access to that entire
Mhm.
machine, which
Mhm.
is why it's
Mhm.
very important for you to have something that doesn't have your personal information on it, your
Yeah.
credit cards, because it's going to
Mhm.
have access to everything.
Mhm.
Wanted to just add that to what Tim has already beautifully laid out to us. Uh, so there's another player that entered the scene, Claude
Mhm.
Code,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
Which is Anthropic. It's a product from Anthropic, which is a
Mhm.
competitor of ChatGPT.
Mhm.
Um, Lots of these YouTube influencers are saying that it's better or it's a real competitor. There's both sides to it. Other people are saying OpenClaw is better. What's your take on it? Have you tried Claude Code? Is
Yes.
it comparable? How is it different? I think they offer different things because from my recollection, Claude Code was mainly for coding.
Mhm. Mhm.
Yeah, tell me more about that.
So I'm a ChatGPT user, and then I didn't use Claude as much. I
Mhm.
would use it and test it out, but then I got to know Claude Code a little bit more, and then I was like, okay, and I slowly started migrate over to Claude and Claude Code. And the reason why is, to me, it just seemed a little bit better at the things that I was doing. So you just have to assess like what's important to you and which model or which LLM like ChatGPT or Claude is going to be good for you or your business or your personal life, right? And I just felt like the advances of Claude was getting better than ChatGPT, so that's why I migrated. But I'll continue still using GPT because I still have clients that have access to certain GPTs that I've created, right? So what we talked about earlier. But I still use GPT, but I use more Claude now than ever, right? And
Mm-hmm.
just because I know that they just made a release of this. I think the founder of Anthropic had mentioned that their coders now code by Claude Code, and they just manage the projects instead of coding themselves. So it's gotten that good since the beginning of since like January, because
Yeah.
that wasn't the case in January, right? And then now with the advances of that you can now talk to it regularly and it can build whatever you want to build or do anything you kind of want it to do. So
Yeah.
I think that's going to be kind of the new norm within business owners if they understand that they don't need a web designer anymore or developer or that they can just have the AI create that for them and then they can just publish it themselves and build really any tool that they want. Because I think that's the new thing for 2026 is business owners that can build tools to make their business stand out more than their competition are going to succeed because they're more focused on their customers' needs and problems than their competitors because they're not using AI to solve those problems too. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm not just talking about what can you do in your business? What can you use in AI to help your customers out to make it easy for them to use your services or, right? So, and some businesses can't do that. I understand that, but some businesses can, right? So like, for instance, going back to real estate is that you can create a tool that gives them access to what the market is of where they're looking for a house. And you can build that with Claude Code and give them a link to that so they can access it every day,
Yeah.
right? And that's something different no other agent's going to provide because they didn't build that, right?
Right.
So it's
Yeah.
just
Well,
like, go ahead.
oh, sorry, go ahead. I was going to say that makes a lot of sense. It's like now you have the opportunity to actually create things that are more custom
Mm-hmm.
and tailored to your business and not only just your business but also your customers to serve them better, right? To have
Correct.
more of like that tailored experience.
Mm-hmm.
Which to me has always been a part of how you do business, but like I is going to make that even easier.
Mm-hmm.
Um, my follow up question to Claude Code is a lot of YouTubers or influencers are saying that it's like OpenClaw but better.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think about that? Like, does it do the same thing?
Yeah, I think it does because
Okay.
now Claude launched co-work.
Mm-hmm.
So co-work can actually run different programs within your system
Mm-hmm.
if you allow it to, right? So the main difference between the two is you have to give access to, co-work to do that, right? In
Right.
OpenClaw, you're installing it into a separate system with separate identity that has access to programs on that system that can run by itself. So that's one of the main things is that you can tell it to do something and it'll go ahead and do it. On Claude, you can tell it to do it and it'll do it, but you still need to
Permission.
grant it access to that, right?
Gotcha.
So yeah.
So
So
it's not like 100% autonomous
correct.
OpenClaw,
Yeah.
which makes it more secure, in my opinion.
Sure.
So you
Sure.
can run it on your computer that you use on a daily basis.
Mhm.
So for me, I think this is something that people who are a little bit more nervous or not
Mhm.
as tech savvy, they might gravitate more towards Claude
Yeah.
Code, right? It's
Yeah.
sort of like in the early days of PC or Mac, like Mac was
Mhm.
just more done for you.
Mhm.
Whereas PC, like a lot of the PC users like to put their computers together. That's how I
Right.
was
No,
seeing it.
I agree because, let's say you need to create a spreadsheet and you're not really good at Excel. And so you give Claude Cowork your access to the spreadsheet, and then you tell it exactly what you need to build, and it'll build it for you, and you give it the task. So it's more task, oriented instead of autonomous, like, OpenClaw, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Because OpenClaw, they will take initiative and do things that you don't even ask it to do.
yeah.
Whereas Claude Code, it doesn't do that, right?
Mhm.
That's not
Yeah.
something that's, yeah, or
Yeah.
at least
S s
just right now. Things can
Right.
change tomorrow.
Right. Things can change, so
Oh my gosh, I can't believe we're almost at an hour.
I know.
I feel like we need another episode because there's
Mm,
still so many questions that I
I
have
know.
here.
Happy
Um,
to do it.
Oh yeah, we need to do it. So let me transition to this next question for you. There's a lot of talk about how AI is replacing, a
Mm,
lot of people and jobs
mhm,
and whatnot. And it's also influencing how people now hire out and building their teams. So how should
mhm.
founders rethink hiring and team structure in an AI first world?
I think, a lot of companies are doing this right now is, basically screening, using AI to screen out applicants and using, keywords and stuff like on their resume to make sure that, like, they're finding the right candidate for that. But also, I think even you have to think about the whole process of hiring, right? Are you the founder that is going to do the initial, the candidate, and then you're going to onboard that candidate, or you have someone on board? You can actually have an AI do the onboarding for you, so you're freed up to, you're not also being the HR person because as an entrepreneur you're wearing multiple hats, right? And what
Hmm.
AI does allows you to delegate some of those duties to the AI to make it a little bit more manageable for you in your day, right? So I think utilizing AI for maybe some of the hiring process that maybe is taking a lot of your time, then I think you should think of it that way, right? Not taking over everything, but in a way where it just makes sense where, because I know like some solo entrepreneurs, what they'll do is have the person run through questions and then make sure they read the whole thing. Because at the bottom, it'll tell them to do something. And if they don't do it, then they know that they didn't read the whole
Yeah,
document, right? And then that's how they screen it out, right?
right.
Where you can have the AI just constantly maybe do that or take take certain calls to a certain point, and you can tell it what to look for on that, and it'll do that, right? So, and
Hmm.
these could be phone conversations, like a phone call. It could be a video call if you wanted to. So it's just during the hiring process, there's a lot of factors to take into account. So it's just
Hmm.
understanding how you can leverage that to best fit your process, right?
Right.
And so, I think you have to have that part of your, hiring process because, right now, like the midsize and bigger companies are utilizing it on an everyday basis, right? So,
Mm,
and I think the other thing is that people that are looking for jobs are having a hard time breaking the AI wall because they're not utilizing AI to help curate their resume to fit that job as well too,
great point.
right?
Yeah.
So to beat AI, you have to use AI to beat the AI. If that
Yes.
makes sense.
Yes, it does. It really does. It all comes down to communication. Like you have to know how to
Does.
communicate with AI and with real people, honestly.
Mhm.
Um, and it makes sense what you're saying in regards to using it to screen, right? Especially with big companies, they get so many applications
Mhm.
that you have to use a screening.
Mhm.
AI tool. It's just going to make your life better, and the process more efficient and also accurate, because that's the thing. It's like AI, it doesn't get tired, it doesn't make mistakes, it doesn't get sick. Yeah, like once you give it a command or a prompt, it will run that
Mhm.
prompt, right? And I love humans more, way more than AI, obviously, because I'm a human.
Yes.
Being imperfect is what makes us human, right?
I know. I know. Because we're
That,
training the AI's voice to be imperfect,
yes,
to be more
exactly.
human-like, right? Saying
Yeah,
ums, us, and whatever, the natural,
yeah,
its natural speech is being correct.
exactly,
And humans
exactly.
aren't always correct. So,
We're not always correct. Even the smartest bunch of us, like
mhm.
doctors, they're wrong a lot of times.
Mhm.
Um, and one thing that you said before that I want to reiterate is that you have to train your AI. It's not going to get things right the first time. Like I
Mhm.
mentioned, it's not a magic bullet. It's not a magic
Mhm.
pill that's going to cure
Mhm.
your all your business ails. Like you have to
Yeah.
really spend time to train it, and you have to see what the output is. And, the great thing about that is you can just keep fine tuning. Another thing that I see people have trouble with deciding is when to keep fine tuning and when to start from scratch, right? To me, that's sort of like
Mhm. Mhm.
when to keep training and when to fire and hire a new person.
Yeah.
That's like very
Yeah.
similar to that. So I wanted to offer that. Tim, it was great having you on the podcast. I think we need to do
Thank
another
you so much.
episode.
Yeah, I'm down. Yeah, let's do it. This was fun. I loved it.
This
I
was
loved the
really fun.
conversation.
Me too. Tim and I are thinking about doing like an in-person AI workshop. So if you're into that, let us know in the
Mhm.
comments and we can make that happen.
Yeah, definitely let us know.
Yeah, we want to do something that's like marketing driven with my background, and obviously Tim business AI driven. Um,
Mhm.
but Tim, to close this out, what do you want to leave our audience with that you didn't get to today?
I think the most important thing is that if you're on the fence of using it, just go ahead and test it out and start using it, and then ask other people how they're using it too. And so you get a sense of maybe how you can use it. Since your audience is more, solopreneurs and entrepreneurs, is that think of ways of how to utilize AI for specific task that you want it to do for your business. And then start small, right? It doesn't have to be big. Just start small and see if it can handle that. And then, you move on from there. But my suggestion is just to start using it within your business or your everyday life, and then just learn from it and grow from that, because your early adopters now are going to be 100 times more ahead than anybody else that hasn't started. I'm happy to, answer any questions, reach out to me. My handle is right there. It's Tim Park or timpark.ai. And happy to reach out, DM me, or just connect with me. I'm happy to answer any questions for you.
Thank you, Tim. And I'll make sure to include Tim's Instagram handle on the show notes so you all can get access to that very easily. Tim, it was so great having you on the podcast. Like I said, we got to do it again. There's still way more
Yes,
things
100%.
that we can talk about. And as I mentioned, Tim and I are thinking about doing a workshop together in person. So for those of you who are interested in that, it's going to be marketing, business, AI. Tim and I were thinking maybe we do like a workshop where we set up OpenClaw with everybody.
Mm-hmm.
I don't
Mm-hmm.
know. We'll see. Give us your ideas. Give us what you're interested in the comments, and we'll see how to make that happen. Okay, everybody. Thank you so much for tuning in. Tim, thanks again. We'll see you all next time. Bye.
If you like this episode, consider subscribing, sharing, and leaving a rating and review. Tradition Breakers is produced by Tasty Sounds, and the theme music is by DJ Professor Moses.